I am back and it feels good. It feels awkward because I haven't filmed a video, filmed an episode, filmed whatever in so long. For those of you who follow me closely on my socials, you guys have definitely noticed my absence. I haven't been posting for over a month, and I think it's the longest time that I've taken a break from social media. And for those of you who are new here, the reason why I haven't been posting is because I just finished a really big course launch for my business. And what I do is not only do I do a lot of free content here on YouTube, podcast, Instagram, my Facebook group, all the likes of that, but I also have my paid content, my gated content for those of you who want to take the next step with me, for those of you who want to access more premium level stuff. It's within my signature program, the Bossgram Academy. This is where I share the entire A to Z of my followers to client system, where I really help you build up a coaching business, build up your Instagram, help you convert your followers into clients. And so on July 24th, all the way until August 2nd, I launched the third edition of the Bossgram Academy, and it was a huge launch, the biggest launch that I have ever done in the 2 years that I've been in business, which honestly, I haven't been in business for that long, and it completely wiped me out. And so that's why I haven't been posting for a while, but I'm back now. And today I really want to answer a lot of the questions that you guys have about that launch. It was a very successful launch. We did over 1,000 sales. We enrolled over 1,000 students. I believe the exact number is 1,070. And this launch was $1 million launch, and I definitely learned so much from it. It's the first time that my team and I have ever done something this big. And not only was it a huge success, but there were also a lot of major fails, a lot of mistakes that I made that I definitely learned from. And so I'm gonna be answering a lot of the questions that you guys have for me. Specifically, I'm gonna give you a preview of the questions that I'm gonna be covering. For example, what are the exact results of this launch? How to have a successful launch? What are the components that are needed? How long did I prepare for this launch? What are the mindset shifts that I need to make in order to have enough stamina to do a launch this big? What did I learn? What would I do differently next time? The advice that I have for you guys. So there's a lot of good questions. I'm even gonna talk about paid advertising today. So if you're interested in learning more about the intricacies, the behind the scenes of $1 million launch, then definitely stay tuned because I'm gonna be sharing everything. All right, so the first question that I have here is, what were the results of the launch? So during those 10 days where we did the launch between July 24th and August 2nd, we enrolled 1,070 new students to the program, which is unreal. We generated $1,126,191 in total sales revenue, so 1.1 million, and $847,902 in cash collected. Now, some of you guys might be wondering, wait a second, so what is it? Is it 1.1 million or is it 800,000? Now, this is a really great question. I mean, you didn't ask, but I'm just guessing that you have that question. What you have to realize is when you start selling digital courses, there are two payment methods usually. There is pay in full and payment plan. Pay in full is usually when someone just pays for the entire program in full right away in one go. And so for you as the course creator, as the business owner, you get the money up front, right? Versus a payment plan, it's really for those people who maybe don't have the funds to do pay in full, or maybe they just want to free up cash flow for themselves and split the payments in, let's say, 3 or 4 installments. The 1.1 million is including the payment plans. It's including the monthly recurring revenue that we would get from those payment plans. And when you're a program creator, a course creator, payment plans are really, really great because it creates that monthly recurring revenue. So that's kind of what I mean. So in total sales, it was 1.1 million. And for cash collected, all the money that we collected up front that went straight to the bank, it was 847,000, which means that we have about $200,000 to $300,000 worth of payment plans that we'll be generating on a recurring basis up until the last installment. So those were the numbers there. Now, I did get some questions from some of you guys that wanted like really intense numbers like conversion rate, attendance rate, subscriber list, all those things. And I will be covering that later on, so hang tight. But the next question that I do want to talk about, which I think a lot of you guys are also probably wondering, is how do you even have a successful launch? Now, I'm gonna be honest with you, having a successful launch and teaching it and doing all of that is definitely not something that can be covered in a YouTube video or in a podcast episode. A lot of that information, the tech setup, the marketing, the promotion, everything is generally taught in a program that spans like maybe 6 months or something. But I can tell you this, I've launched my program 3 times already, and each time was different, right? The first time was my first time. The second time was a soft launch. I barely talked about it. And then this third time that I'm talking about now was the biggest, promotion strategy was there, paid advertising. I had a team, I had the webinars, I had all the things. This was like a monster launch for me at least. But I can say throughout all 3 times that I've launched the program, there are 3 elements that I noticed contribute to their success every single time. The first one is social proof, which means people need to understand or know that your program can get them results, or that you are someone that they can trust because you've gotten results for other people in the past or anything like that. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later on. The second one is you need to have content that nurtures and builds demand for your product. This is really ingrained in the pre-launch phase and also during the launch period, where you are really planting that seed to your audience members that something is coming up. You are really creating content that's making your audience realize that they need your product or service. And then during the launch, you are creating content that drives up urgency for people to take action. So content is something that is very, very important, or at least something that helps nurture your audience and builds that demand for your product. And then lastly, traffic. So that means actually getting eyeballs onto your offer, actually getting people to sign up, actually getting people to book a call with you, to go on your sales page, to whatever. And again, I'm going to talk more about traffic specifically and numbers specifically later on. With these 3 things, and I mentioned social proof, content that nurtures and builds demand, and traffic, some of you guys might be thinking, wait, don't you need like a rock solid product? Why didn't you mention product? Or don't you need to have a sales funnel, a functioning sales funnel? Yes. Having a good product is definitely important, and having a sales funnel can definitely help you scale up, can help you get more sales and all of that. But I really want to explain that all those things may not be necessary, especially if you're starting out. And this is just based off of my own experience of launching courses. Because what you have to understand is that everyone starts from zero. Not everyone wakes up with a validated product. Not everyone wakes up and has the money to spend or all the resources to create a robust and very comprehensive sales funnel. And I was there a year and a half ago. So I'm gonna really explain to you how I launched the Bossgram Academy for the very first time, okay? And how I launched it was I sold the sales page. I really took so much inspiration from Elon Musk, and I have another podcast episode where I talk about that, and the podcast episode is called The Difference Between a Course That Flops versus a course that makes $500,000 and what Elon Musk has to do with it. But in that episode, I really explain how Elon Musk, whenever he launches something, he usually launches the prototype of that product. He gets demand for that product first, and then he builds a wait list of people who will send him a deposit and reserve that product, even though the product, whether that's the Cybertruck or the very first Tesla that he ever created, regardless if it's created or not. And it's genius because that way he's not wasting money on manufacturing these cars that don't even have valid demand, right? And so instead, he'll just introduce the prototype, sell the idea of that product, collect the cash, which means that there is demand, there is skin in the game, and then he uses that cash to build the product. And so when I launched the Bossgram Academy for the very first time, I didn't have the course created. But what I did have was I had a very solid sales page, and I had some social proof from working with clients in the past. Even though they didn't take the course, the fact that I've gotten results for previous one-on-one clients, and also I leveraged a lot of testimonials from my free content as well. I had a bunch of screenshots, a bunch of DMs of people who would message me saying, oh my goodness, Vanessa, thanks to your free content, I was able to grow my Instagram to 10,000 followers. I was able to sign my very first client. And so I leveraged that and I put it on the sales page to build that social proof. And so I didn't necessarily have the product ready, and I also didn't really have a robust sales funnel at the time. My first launch looks very, very different from my third launch, the launch that we're talking about what we're talking about today. My very first launch, I just went on Facebook Live and I just told people about my product. I did 3 free trainings, and then I just sent people to a checkout page. I didn't have email sequences. I didn't have a lot of the fancy things that I have now. And so that's why I firmly believe that the 3 core elements of a successful launch is social proof, content that builds demand. In my case, for my very first launch, I had those 3 trainings that I did on Facebook Live. It wasn't on a fancy webinar platform. It was literally just on Facebook, and also traffic. I built an email list, I built an audience, and all of that, and that contributed to my very first launch, even though I didn't have a validated product. And instead, people paying me, people investing in that very first launch then helped me create the product later on. It helped me invest in things like Kajabi. It helped me invest in hiring a team member to help me deploy some of the course assets and all of that. Having a good product is still very, very, very important. And that is exactly why my very first launch made 6 figures, right? But you need to be able to repeat that. So my very first launch to now, my third launch has made $1 million. I have 10x'd the results of this program. How? Because this program, even though when I first launched it wasn't completely validated, I validated over time. Those initial students who enrolled in the very first round of the Bossgram Academy, they gave me so much feedback. I learned so much from that process. They gave me testimonials. And so I was able to build off of that. I redesigned, re-engineered the entire program, launched it the second time. And the second time that I launched it was in October of 2019. So my first launch was April 2019. My second launch was October 2019, and then my third launch was July 2020. And so my second launch was more of a soft launch. I didn't really tell a lot of people about it. I just kind of had the funnel set up and we were making income from the funnel alone. And that also has made over $1 million over time as well. And then now the third launch made $1 million within just those 10 days. And so that, in order to achieve that, that's when you truly do need to have a solid product that gets people results, that gets you those testimonials, that gets you more social proof. But to answer the question of how you have a successful launch, I'm just having some of you in mind who may be starting out. It's really you having social proof. It's you having content that builds demand, that markets your product, that, you know, really creates that sense of urgency, that promotes your product, and also the traffic that you need, because you need to still grow an audience. And a lot of people think having a small audience is fine. And I completely agree. Having a small audience shouldn't stop you from starting. However, you need to continuously grow that audience. So starting small is fine, but you need to continually grow that audience pool, because over time, you're going to exhaust that pool of people who are already following you. Always have to strive for growth. And that's how exactly I went from 100,000 to 1 million during those 3 launches in between. And now my business in total is at 2 million. That's just something that you want to keep in mind when it comes to how do you have a successful launch. Now, before I move on to the next question, I definitely want to make sure, especially if you're someone who's interested in learning more about content that creates demand, funnels, and the step-by-step of how I scaled from working with one-on-one clients to selling courses, you definitely want to check out www.followerstoclients.com. I have a full 90-minute free training there where I really package all 3 of these topics into mini trainings, and you can learn a lot of valuable stuff from there. So definitely check out www.followerstoclients.com if you want to learn more about what I talked about in a more comprehensive way. Anyways, the next question that I have here is, what were my KPIs for the launch? What were my key performance indicators? Now, basically, for me, how I sell my program is through a training. It's through a webinar. And inside this webinar, inside this training, I give a ton of value, and I also give people a preview of what they can expect from the Bossgram Academy. It really helps us to ensure both the viewer and both myself whether or not they'd be a good fit for the program. And so that's essentially what a lot of course creators do. And so if you are someone who decides to sell courses and you want to do free trainings, you want to do all of that to really warm your prospects up, for them to really understand more about your program, the methods that you use, all of that stuff, then there are a few things that you might want to track beyond just sales and unit numbers and all of that. Because obviously revenue goals and sales goals are really important, but what's even more important to help you get to those goals is going to be how many people actually register for your training. And of those people who register, how many people actually show up? So that is your attendance rate. And of those people who show up, what's the percentage of people that actually take the next step, that actually decide that your program is right for them and end up enrolling in your program? And so for us, the original goals that we had for this launch is we wanted to do 500,000 in revenue. So 500 new students that we would welcome with open arms into the program. We wanted a conversion rate of 5% and we wanted an attendance rate of 60%. So those were the original goals that I had communicated to my team. I will admit that I was very, very conservative and it actually bit me in the ass later on. And I'm going to talk about why it's so important to not lowball yourself when you're setting goals. But just so that you guys understand more about the numbers side of things, is it's so important to understand your conversion rate and your attendance rate, because when you have those two numbers, you are going to be able to reverse engineer your goal. So let's do this together. Let's say my goal was 500 new students, right? Now, if I want 500 new students and I know that my goal conversion rate is 5%, then I basically do basic algebra and solve for X, right? If I know I want 500 new students, how many people needs to be at the training in order to convert 5% to equal 500 people? And so when you do 500 units divided by 5%, that will give you about 10,000 people. And so this tells me that, okay, in order to have a 5% conversion and in order to enroll 500 new people, this means that I need 10,000 people to show up to my webinar, okay? And then once you have that number, you ask yourself, okay, what is my goal attendance rate? And then you solve for X again. So my goal attendance rate that I communicated to my team was 60%. I was forecasting that maybe 60% of people who registered would actually show up. And so I do 10,000 attendees divided by a 60% attendance rate, and that ends up giving me 16,000 total registrants. So now it tells me that basically in order for me to enroll 500 students with the goals that I have, which was a 60% attendance rate and a 5% conversion rate, then this means I need 16,000 people to register for my training. And so during the launch, I was really monitoring the amount of people that were registering for the trainings, because if I don't hit that number, then I know I'm not going to hit my goal. And so that's why it's really important when you go into a launch that you know your numbers really well, because when you know your numbers, you know exactly what to fix in order to hit your goal. So let's say, for example, I know that my goal was 16,000 registrants and I'm seeing that only 5,000 people registered, then maybe I need to do more paid advertising. Maybe I need to talk about my training more. Maybe I need to, do more promotion strategies in order to get that number up, because I know if I don't hit that number, then I'm not going to hit my goal based on the conversion rate and the attendance rate that I had set for myself. Or let's say you have all these people register and you meet your goal, but you don't have a lot of people attending, you actually don't have a lot of people showing up, then if you don't hit that goal that you set for yourself, then you're not going to hit your end result goal, which is 500 students enrolled, which is whatever revenue you want to make. And so therefore, if you know that people aren't attending your class, then you have to ask yourself, okay, maybe something is broken in my email reminders. Maybe I need to send more emails to the people who said that they were going to show up. Maybe I need to do another training at a different time to give people more options, which is what we did in our launch. So basically we had 3 trainings, we had 3 original webinars, and we were seeing that, oh my goodness, we weren't hitting our attendance rate. So I'll tell you the numbers later, but we weren't hitting the attendance rate. And I was like, oh my gosh, holy crap. Like, a lot of people said that they were going to show up. They didn't end up showing up. And in our customer support emails, we actually had a ton of people tell us, oh, the times don't work for me. I'm in a different country. I can't prioritize it. And so at the very last second, I ended up actually hopping on YouTube and doing a public training, YouTube Live. I gave everyone the replay because I knew that a lot of people couldn't attend the training based on our numbers. And I knew that if I don't hit those numbers, then we're not going to hit our goal. As the business owner, it's really important that you are agile, that you know how to read your numbers, because you won't freak out as much and you will just be so logical in your approach of where you need to focus on in your launch. Now, let's say your conversion rate is really low. So for us, we wanted a 5% conversion rate. And let's say the conversion rate is really tanking. Let's say it's at like 0.5% or something like that. Compared to our goal, it's really far off. So that tells me, okay, so if my conversion rate is really low, then this means something is wrong with my training. Something is wrong with my positioning. Maybe my pitch isn't really resonating with people. Maybe people just aren't interested in the offer and I need to tweak my positioning and messaging. Maybe I need more testimonials. Maybe I need better payment options, whatever it is. Now you know, looking at your numbers, that, hey, it's the conversion rate that's not doing well, that's suffering. And so instead of focusing on promoting the class more, promoting your webinar more, you're instead gonna fix the webinar. You're instead going to make it better, make it juicier, make it whatever you need, because you know where to focus your efforts on. And so that's why it's really important that you know your numbers, because during the launch period, you don't want to be focusing on the wrong things. And for us in our launch, the biggest problem that we had was our attendance rate. We had a bunch of people register. Our conversion rate was phenomenal, but we just didn't have enough people to actually show up because we didn't give enough time options. And that's kind of the learning lesson that I had, because we have a lot of audience members that are from Europe, that are from Asia, that are from different parts of the country that just couldn't make it. And so we pivoted and we ended up doing a YouTube live stream of the entire training. We gave it to everyone, even if they didn't register, because we knew that our attendance rate wasn't that great. And so speaking of which, let me tell you what our actual numbers were and all of that. So our actual numbers is obviously, like I said earlier on, we did 1.1 million in total sales, in which 556,000 were directly from the trainings itself. We did about 3 trainings plus 1 more bonus training on the last day publicly on the YouTube channel. Our conversion rate was 11%. So our original goal was 5%. We actually doubled that. And I have a feeling it's because, they were live trainings. We interacted with the audience and all of that. And so the conversion rate was much higher. We changed the entire webinar. We improved it. We did a lot of value-based content. And so, you can definitely check it out at www.followerstoclients.com to kind of see more of that in action. That probably contributed to why we had such a great conversion rate, because 11% is really great. And then we had an attendance rate of 36%. So you see how the attendance rate was not what I had anticipated. I thought that 60% of people were gonna show up. But no, only 36% of people did. And like I said, we ended up having to pivot. And so that basically was our numbers. And so let me just see how many people actually registered. We ended up getting 13,000 registrants in total, which isn't bad. Our original goal was 16,000, but because our conversion rate was a lot higher than we anticipated, almost double, we actually didn't need to have that many registrants after all. And so I just want to share this candidly with you, because I know a lot of people don't share this with new course creators, with people who want to monetize this way. I think knowing your numbers just definitely changed the game for me when it comes to anything that I do in business. I am so logical now, and I don't make decisions based off of emotions as much. I really make decisions based off of the pure data that's sitting right in front of me. And so I definitely want to empower you guys to understand your numbers. And even if you're not a course creator and you're listening to this because you're just curious to know, even when it comes to your YouTube channel, even when it comes to your Instagram, like look at your analytics. Your analytics can tell you so much of what you need to optimize and improve in your strategies and in your efforts and all of that. And it's just game changing when you actually know your numbers. All right, so the next question that I have right in front of me is, what did I learn from this launch? What would I do differently? What do I wish I did differently? Was it worth the effort for some things? And what would I drop for next time? And so this is a really great question, and there's definitely so much that I can share, but I will share the top 3 things that I think I really should have done better in. And the first one is, I really wish that I started at least 6 months in advance to launching the program and from starting everything. And if anything, 6 months honestly doesn't even seem like that much. And I know some of you guys are shocked, like half a year to launch a program. Absolutely, especially the type of launch that we did that required so much like operations, logistics, marketing, paid advertising, like so many new strategies that I was not used to doing, because I'm just so used to just talking about something and then just putting it out there. Like this was actually a very intentional launch that we did. And I really wish that I started at least 6 months in advance. I wish I started like smack in January. And to be honest, I had the intention to start that early, but I was just procrastinating and procrastinating and procrastinating. So I'm a Taurus and I'm also an ENFP. And for those of you who are Tauruses and ENFPs, you know that we are very lazy. We are very like all talk, no action. So I'll be like, yeah, I'm gonna do all this stuff. And then when it actually comes to doing it, I'm like, nope, not today. Not today. I'm gonna push it. I'm gonna push it back. I'm gonna push it back. I'm gonna push it back. To the point where this time for this launch, we only really had like 2.5 months to prep. which is not great. I really do wish I planned it in advance and I had 6 months of dedicated work towards it, because I feel like if I did do 6 months in advance, I wouldn't have burnt out as badly after the launch. I wouldn't have compromised my YouTube channel, my Instagram, the traction that I was getting. I really am kicking myself, but it was very important for me to take a whole month off of my business just to recuperate and get my energy back. Like, I was not looking like this for a good solid 3 weeks because I was just done. Because a launch is very, very exhausting, to be honest, which is why I don't do live launches often. I think I'll probably just only do them once a year, but it was just very exhausting. And if I had those 6 months, and I have a list of things that I would do, is I would have planned my YouTube, my Facebook, my podcast, my Instagram content a lot farther in advance. I would have batched everything. And so this is the key difference between this launch, which was chaotic, versus my very first launch that I ever did. My very first launch, Vanessa, back in 2019, she was so smart. I was so smart. I batched all of my YouTube content. And so during the launch, everything was pre-planned and scheduled out. Even after the launch, things were still being scheduled out. And so I didn't have to lift a finger on my YouTube channel. It was already running on its own. And I also did a better job with just content planning in general. Whereas for this launch, I was literally doing everything at the last second. I didn't batch a single thing. Even for my Instagram content, I was writing them the day of. For my YouTube channel, I just gave up halfway. My podcast, let's not even talk about the podcast. Like, I didn't even post a single thing because it was the least of my problems. Like, I had to figure out so many internal things with my team. We had to figure out the webinars. We had to do all of that stuff. And so my content, my free content, ended up suffering as a result. And even after the launch, it took me a month to recuperate and rebatch everything all over again. And so I really do wish that I had more time to batch every single thing versus chasing my tail, which is something that I like literally tell people not to do. I ended up doing, and I ended up burning out. Another thing that I think within those 6 months I could have allotted more time for is more time to train new team members. And so during that time, we actually lost a few team members and we gained a few more team members, but they were newer team members, and it was like literally smack in the beginning stages of our launch. And so a lot of our time was spent obviously training these people, which took away from actually planning the launch itself. And so if I had kind of anticipated that sooner, if I had hired people sooner and not so close to launch period, then things would have gone much smoother and it would have been less chaotic. And so I definitely think I would have allotted more time for that and just hiring people way farther in advance and not during launch season. Another thing I would have done more of is doing more PR initiatives and collaborations. And if I had planned things more in advance, I would have been able to slot time for that. But as you can see, I could barely keep up with my own channel. So why the heck would I hop on someone else's channel? Why the heck would I hop on someone else's podcast, right? And so if I had batched my content better, I would have had created more space to do more collaborations with other people, which would then help me build my email list, build more exposure for myself, grow my audience a lot faster and a lot wider so that it would set me up for success for my launch. And so if you guys are planning on launching anything, 6 months in advance, really plan out your collaborations, because that's really how you can grow your email list, tap into newer audiences that don't know you yet, that haven't seen your offer yet. And so I really wish that I had enough time to do that. I didn't. Another thing that I also wish I did sooner was growing my email list, right? So if I had those 6 months, I would have spent the whole half a year growing an email list with a new freebie, a new lead magnet that would really help us get a fresher audience. Because for me, I have not really spent that much effort in list building because I already had a really big email list. And one of you guys actually asked me how many people are on my email list. We have 100,000 people, right? And so I thought, great, I have 100,000 people on my email list, I'll be fine. But what I didn't realize was, okay, but all those 100,000 people, they've seen this offer already. They already know what Bossgram Academy is all about. And so I should have spent more time growing that email list with newer audience members who've never seen my offer before so that the launch would be more exciting for them. And so I really wish that I did that at least like 3 months in advance. I actually ended up doing list building activities like 3 weeks in advance, which is literally barely any time. And so I do wish that I built my email list a lot sooner, and I highly recommend that you guys do that too. Another thing that I wish I did sooner within those 6 months is running Facebook ads a lot sooner. And so I'm very new to Facebook ads, and we started running Facebook ads maybe a month before the launch. And it was just like test things out and see how I like Facebook ads. It was about testing things. But what I didn't realize is that there's a lot of limited things that new Facebook ad accounts can do. And later on, I'm gonna talk more about Facebook advertising and was it worth it? Was it not worth it? But what I realized is I originally, for this launch, I wanted to spend a lot of money in paid advertising. I wanted to spend $100,000 on paid advertising. And to give you more context, you might think like, oh my God, $100,000 on paid advertising, that's a lot. But what you have to realize is with Facebook ads, if you spend $100,000 and you can make a 2x ROI or you could make a 3x ROI on that. So let's say for every dollar you put in, you make $3 back. $100,000 is so worth it. If I spend $100,000 and I can get $300,000 back, that's amazing, right? And it doesn't matter if it's $100,000, it could be $10. If you could put $10 into something and get $50 back, totally worth it. And so me, in order to hit our goals, I really wanted to spend more money on Facebook ads. However, because our ad account hasn't been doing ads or running ads for a while, it's still a very brand new account, Facebook capped the amount that we could spend. And so we weren't able to do as much paid advertising as I had wanted to. And it was all because we weren't that old on Facebook. Like we were just starting out, we were a baby account. And so if you are someone who is planning to do paid advertising for your promotional marketing efforts, then you definitely want to make sure that you have a much more mature account and you should start now so that you can build up that street cred with Facebook. And so I really wish that we did that sooner. And I really wish that I tested Facebook ads a lot sooner to get more data, to be more optimized and everything like that. And then the last thing that I wish I did is I wish that I hired DMCA experts sooner. And so what DMCA experts are is basically people who will take down pirate sites and all of that. And so something that happens, especially if you grow in business, obviously the target on your back becomes a bit bigger. And so what we found is that some people knew that we were launching, and because they knew that we were launching, that means that we're gonna get a lot of SEO. We're gonna get a lot of people who go on Google and search Bossgram Academy, and they wanted to capitalize on that. And so what happened is that people created fake websites of our program, right? And they tried to sell it for free or for $20 or for $50 on the internet. They tried to scam people. And so during the launch, when someone searched up Bossgram Academy, they would see a bunch of these pirate sites. They would see a bunch of these fake websites claiming that they have our program, and they would be scamming people from that. And they tried to capitalize on the traffic that we had. And so I was in a panic. I had a meltdown over it. I couldn't believe it, and it was gonna hurt us. And so I ended up having to hire DMCA experts to remove those links and to do all that stuff. And I really wish that I had done that sooner. I wish I was more knowledgeable in this topic. And I wish that if I knew that I had grown this audience to be this big, that of course people are gonna come for me. And I wish that I just equipped myself better in handling piracy and handling scammers and all of that. And that's something that I definitely was not equipped for during the launch. And I'm still learning new things every day of the crazy things that people do. Like people will create fake accounts or they'll impersonate my team and then they'll DM my followers and say, I have Bossgram Academy, pay me $50 or pay me $100. And they just scam people using my name. The shittiest part is that it's so hard to do anything, any legal action around that. And so that's why we went with DMCA experts that are specialized in taking down piracy and taking down links on Google and all of that versus going to lawyers, because the lawyers couldn't really do anything about it. And so those are things that I really wish that I did sooner. And so instead of 6 months, my team and I, we really only had 2.5 months to prep for everything. And 2.5 months just simply wasn't enough, especially starting from scratch. And in my case, I ended up redoing my entire program too. So not only did I have to prepare for the launch itself, but I also re-engineered the entire program for the 3rd time. And I'm really glad I did that, because at that time I had collected so many testimonials, I had collected so much feedback from the program that I knew exactly what I needed to put into this 3rd edition in order to make it the best possible program ever, get people results even faster than they were already getting it. And it was so worth the effort. But it takes a while to recreate an entire program that has like 50 lessons, and not only the program itself, but also all the other bonuses that come with it. That's probably why I burnt out right afterwards, because it was just a lot of work in a very short amount of time. And I truly wish, and I truly recommend for you guys, is to have at least 6 months of prep work, 6 months of building the list, 6 months of planning, 6 months of just doing the thing, right? Versus leaving it to the last minute and doing it in the last 2 months, especially if you plan on doing something that is like a huge launch with a bunch of email sequences, live trainings, testimonial campaign, paid advertising, redoing your entire program. You know, it's a lot of work. And so I really do wish that I spent at least 6 months in advance prepping for all of that to avoid burnout and also to avoid being in the situation situation that I'm in which case my YouTube channel I couldn't keep up with, my podcast I couldn't keep up with, my Instagram account I couldn't keep up with, and now I'm just, eating up that mistake. Now, the second thing that I have here on my list of things that I learned, things that I wish I did differently, things that I won't do for the next time, is I just wish I trusted myself more. And truthfully, this was my very first big launch with fancy funnels, 25 emails sent out, and all the 9 yards of everything, paid advertising, blah, 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 fancy sales page and everything like that. And because of that, I obviously, like many of you, lean towards mentors. I lean towards people who had more experience than me, people who have been in the industry for longer, because for me, even though my results have been really phenomenal, I haven't been in business for that long. And so a metaphor or an analogy that I really like to share with people on how I always feel in my business is I feel like my business is right here, and it's $1 million business. It's doing really well. I have all the subscribers, followers, whatever. It's so successful, and it's a lot of things that a lot of people spend years, 10 years to build. So my business is here, but myself as a person, as a new entrepreneur, a new business owner, I'm far behind. And I always feel like my business is dragging me by the legs. And it's not a bad thing. It just means that I'm forced to be in very uncomfortable situations every month. And I am very forced to really learn as much as I can to keep up with the growth, if that makes sense. So imagine if you are a mom and pop store and you all of a sudden get featured on BuzzFeed, and then you get thousands of customers, you get thousands of people coming to your restaurant, but your restaurant is only equipped to handle 10 people. You would be freaking out. And you then have to deal with legal stuff. You have to deal with benefits. You have to deal with hiring employees because you need employees and contractors aren't enough. And then you have to figure out your books and your accounting, and you have to figure out how you're going to scale because, as a person, you working with 10 clients, that's one thing. But then all of a sudden you have 3,000 people in your program. How are you going to deal with that? You need to have a business infrastructure that supports that. I am always constantly in a position where I'm learning new things every day as my business grows really fast, and it's a blessing, but it's also really uncomfortable, and I just have to deal with it. And so during the launch, my imposter syndrome was through the roof because I'm oh my goodness, I have these big goals and I am so scared that I'm gonna do something wrong. And so I leaned a lot on other people. I leaned on other experts, I leaned on mentors and everything like that. And I just took so much opinion from everyone that I lost my own opinion on things. And a good example of things that didn't work is we decided to do expiring bonuses because we had heard that that was successful for someone else. And what that was basically instead of all the bonuses expiring at the same time, it would be on Monday, one bonus is gonna disappear. On Wednesday, the second bonus is gonna disappear. And then on Friday, the third bonus is gonna disappear. And so theoretically, that's supposed to cause more excitement for people. That's going to cause a lot of people to enroll sooner rather than later, rather than at the very last second, because they want to get those bonuses. And so that's one example of something that we tried to do. But during the entire launch, I was so confused about how these bonuses even worked. I'm pretty sure I had to ask my team 30 million questions every single time about these bonuses because I couldn't really understand the logistics of it. And my team wasn't also very sure. And so for me, what I learned is that if you as the CEO, if you don't understand your own marketing strategy, if you don't understand your own promotional strategy, then guess what? Your audience members are not going to understand it either. And that's exactly what happened. And so we did these expiring bonuses because I didn't trust my intuition to pull the plug because I know that, this was a successful strategy for someone else. And so no, let's do this. But I ended up pulling the plug on it 3 days into our launch because we had so many customer support emails of our prospects being hey, I'm kind of confused about these bonuses. When does it expire? Do I get all of this? How come I didn't get this bonus? All that stuff. And it was chaotic, and I felt chaotic about it. And so my biggest lesson is, like I said, number one, if you don't understand what's going on, then your audience members isn't going to understand what's going on, and simple is always better. And then the second thing that I learned was, I should have trusted my gut, and I didn't because I was just so blindsided by everyone else's best practices that I totally ignored my own philosophy of keeping things simple. So for me, I hate overcomplicating things. I really love taking the simpler route of things as much as I can. And this launch, a lot of the elements of it was far from simple because I wanted to implement a lot of the best practices that other leaders in the industry were doing that worked really well for them, but just didn't really work well for me, but I did it anyways. And so I really wish that I listened to myself more. And I think for next time I will. Beyond just this specific example, there were other things too that I really didn't listen to myself on. And I feel like the launch could have been a little bit more simpler versus having all these complicated things. But definitely those expiring bonuses did not work well for us. And it was just a really big lesson that I learned from that I'm really glad that I learned. Now, the next thing that I wish that I did differently was I wish I communicated to my team my real goal. And so like I said earlier on, I told my team that the goal was $500,000, 500 students enrolled, and all of that. But deep inside, what I really wanted to do was 1,000 new students enrolled, and I wanted to hit that milestone of having $1 million launch. But because this was such a big goal for me, I didn't communicate that to anyone. And I kept it to myself because I didn't want to jinx it. I didn't want to do anything like that. But this ended up biting me in the ass real bad. And what I mean by this is very similar to the example that I gave you about that mom and pop store. If your business is only equipped to handle 200 customers, but then you end up getting 1,000 customers, your business is going to break. And that's essentially what happened after the launch, and is exactly why I ended up taking a really big break on the front end so that you guys didn't see me on YouTube, Instagram, podcast, Facebook, because honestly, managing my social media accounts was the least of my problems. If I actually told my team, hey, listen, I want to enroll 1,000 new students, I want to welcome 1,000 new BGA students into the program, then what we would have done is we would have turned all of our part-time contractors into full-time employees to sustain that. We would have hired more people, more positions in order to do that. We would have restructured the entire business so that we could accommodate 1,000 new students on top of the existing 2,000 students that we already had. But because I didn't communicate those goals, my business was only built for 500 students, but we ended up doubling that. And so what happened is after the launch, instead of me taking a break or instead of me, doing YouTube videos and podcasts like I usually do, I really had to work with my team to figure out who are we going to need to let go? Who do we need to replace? Who do we need to turn into a full-time employee instead of a contractor? Who else do we need to hire? And we're still in the process of hiring new positions so that we can fulfill that many people. We also needed to increase people's hours. And if I had just been transparent with everyone of what I truly wanted, if I was super confident in the vision that I had for the business and I was transparent with my team on the vision, then all of that wouldn't have happened. But now I am obviously eating up those mistakes. My team and I are working really hard to, restructure everything to fulfill all of the demand and all of the success, which is obviously really great, but you definitely want to plan for success. You don't want to just do what I did and just hope secretly that you'll be successful and that you'll hit your goals. Because if you don't plan for success and actually physically plan, hey, if I'm gonna, make this much, or if I'm gonna enroll this many people, or if I'm gonna grow my account to this much or whatever, what is my business strategy to back that up? Because if your business strategy, if your, infrastructure, your ecosystem, if it doesn't match the goal that you have and you actually hit that goal, well, guess what? Your business will break. And this is a very common thing that happens as you scale up. My business breaks every 2 months, I swear. And so every time it breaks, you just have to troubleshoot, you have to pivot, you have to prioritize. And in my case, I prioritized fixing my business on the back end instead of posting Instagram captions and being on Instagram story. Now, of course, those things are still so important for my business, but during that time, I had to make a decision. Do I want to continue posting videos while the back end of my business is on fire? Probably not. And so that's why I had to take that break. And now that we're slowly settling into fixing all the things that are breaking internally in our business, I'm now back on YouTube, back on podcasts. I'm rethinking everything, and it feels good. But I just really want to be transparent of the back end, of the behind the scenes of what happens when you do meet your goals or when you exceed your goals. Exceeding your goals, celebrating is one thing, but then you got to clean up all the things that you need to fix because of that success. And that's going to happen every time you grow. It's like a pair of shoes, right? Let's say you are a size 6 at this time, and then all of a sudden your feet grow, it's gonna be painful. Your shoes are no longer gonna fit and you're gonna need new shoes. And so in your business, every 3 months, every quarter, expect yourself to get new shoes. And if you have to constantly get new shoes, you are in a good position, my friend, because that means you're growing. If you're in the same pair of shoes, you know, probably a sign that you're not growing, right? And so that's something that I wanted to share with you and something that I wish that I did differently with this launch. Now, moving on to the next question that I have here, and that is, how long did you prepare for this launch? Now, earlier on, I did say that it was like 2.5 months of like pure work, but I will tell you that there were some things that I put in motion before the 2.5 month mark. So I have the timeline here right in front of me. In February, that's when we started to work with Brand Up. So Brand Up is the agency that I outsource a lot of my branding to. I outsource web design, landing page design to. And so what Brand Up did, what I asked them to do for me was I wanted to rebrand the entire program. I wanted to clean up the logo, clean up the color palette, really rebuild it, because Bossgram Academy was my very first course that I launched. And it really looks like an amateur did the logo. It doesn't look, you know, like $1 million program. And I really wanted to step into that $1 million program vibe, that energy. And at that time, I already had a validated product, a product that sells consistently. I have the money to back it up. I have everything. It's validated. I want to invest in it. And so I did. And so Brand Up and we worked on a new color palette, a new look and feel, new logo, new design, new everything. And so they helped me with that in February. And then they also helped me in April to design and create the sales page. So once we created the finalized style guide of all the logos, the icons, the color palette, in April, that's when we started to kickstart the sales page project. So for me, I've been selling the Bossgram Academy with the sales page that I built myself. And obviously it looks good, but it doesn't give you that professional feel. And I really wanted to have that $1 million feel. I really wanted that luxurious feel of, oh my gosh, this is a premium program. And especially because something that I'm doing now is paid advertising and really putting my program in front of colder audiences, I really wanted to make sure that it had a really polished look. Brand Up was the ones that designed the sales page, and the sales page is gorgeous. It is so nice. And that's stuff that we kicked off back in April. And at the same time, I outsourced a lot of the copywriting to my friend Perna over at Content Bistro. She is a conversion copywriter, and she helped us create a lot of the copy for the sales page. And she did a lot of market research on our students. She went through the entire program. She knew everything inside and out, and she knew exactly the right words to convey the results that people would get in the program, the transformation, all of that. And she did that all on our sales page. And so those were things that we started to do in April, and we ended up launching everything in July. So you can do the math and see how long ago that was. And then in May was when my team and I started to do a lot of outreach to our existing students to get testimonials. Because like I said earlier on, one of the key factors of a successful launch is social proof. And I really knew that we had so many amazing wins from our students from the past, year that we've had the program. We wanted to reach out to each student who has had a win in the program and see if they'd be willing to send us a video testimonial, a written testimonial, all of that. And so we already started that process in May to collect those testimonials to put on the sales page. And then we also created an Instagram account called @the Academy, where we showcased a lot of these testimonials and also screenshots of the wins that we got in our Facebook group. And so this was a very long process to look at all the wins, collect everything, go through the entire Facebook group, screenshot all the wins that we've seen. And it really taught me how important it is as a business to have a really good testimonial process. And it wasn't until I did this where I realized that I needed a better testimonial process. You shouldn't be asking your students for a video testimonial like months after they finish the program. You should probably ask them the moment they have a win, but we didn't do that. And so it took us a while to really collect all the testimonials, videos, all of that, get consent, all that stuff. And so we kicked that off in May. And not only this, in May, I also reached out to 99 Designs. So 99 Designs is a company where you can outsource a lot of graphic design work. And I got 99 Designs using the brand guideline that Brand Up made for us. 99 Designs then helped us create a presentation template. So a template that is a PowerPoint template using our Bossgram Academy branding. And then in June was when I used that presentation template and redid the entire Bossgram Academy program. So the entire June, I was sitting in front of the computer, redoing all the modules, redoing all the PowerPoints, redoing all the videos myself, filming, editing, all of that, all of June. And then July 1st was when we launched the Bossgram Academy 3.0, so the third version, the updated version, to our existing students only. So it wasn't available publicly, we only gave it to our existing students. And this was such a good move on our part because our students told us, what was missing, any links that were broken, things that didn't really make sense in the new program. And so they really were kind of like our guinea pigs, our beta testers on this program. And they gave us so much feedback that we were able to fix things before we actually launched it to the public. And so when we launched the actual program to the public, it was already validated by our existing students, and we had already fixed a lot of the major issues like missing links, missing worksheets, and all of that, human error stuff, so that by the time that the new students came in, most of it was already very, very polished and all of that. And so that's kind of the timeline of how things happened. And then in July, that's where my team and I really doubled down in terms of the marketing material, the webinars, the logistics. We did a lot of tech checking, so like a lot of tech run-throughs. We wanted to make sure that the funnels, the tags, the webinar platforms that we were using were working. It was just a lot of testing at that point. We really doubled down a lot on making sure the emails were written correctly, that the messaging was good. During the launch period, we had about 25 emails that were sent out. It was a lot. It was more emails that I've ever sent in my entire life. And a lot of that is really thanks to hiring and outsourcing as well. So we have our conversion copywriter, Perna, who worked on us with this project. She did our sales page. She helped us with our emails and all of that. And so when you have the capacity to outsource as much as you can, like outsource the graphics, outsource the design template, outsource whatever, if you have the capacity to, if you have the financial resources to. Now, obviously for me, the very first time that I launched the Bossgram Academy, I did everything myself, but it's also why my first launch wasn't as robust as this launch right here. Whereas this launch, I had the financial capacity to outsource as much as I could so that my zone of genius was really focused on marketing the program, promoting the program, and also creating the program and recreating it and updating it. That took me a whole month to do. Even if you hire one person to help you out, definitely do that. I remember my very first launch, I had one person helping me out, and she helped me with uploading things to Kajabi. She helped me with, fixing up my PowerPoint, reviewing any typos, and already that was such a big blessing. And so definitely outsourcing is key here, but I just wanted to give you the timeline of how we prepared for the launch and the different focuses that we had per month. But like I said earlier on, I really do wish that we had the full 6 months to be hyper intentional. I wish I spent more time building my list, planning my content, and I wish I didn't leave a lot of the bulk of the work, like the logistics, the marketing, the creation or the recreation of the program within the last 2.5 months. That was really brutal, and I really would not do that again. All right, another question that I have is, what percentage was ad spend and is paid advertising worth it? So this was my very first time experimenting with Facebook ads. And like I said earlier on, we did have an issue with how much we could actually spend on advertising because we had a new Facebook ad account. So I really wish that I had spent more time running Facebook ads before the launch so that we could build, a street cred with Facebook, and therefore we could have spent more money on paid advertising. But to give you the numbers, for those of you who are interested in paid advertising, we spent a total of $7,277 on paid ads on Facebook only, and we ended up making $157,673 with Facebook ads alone, meaning our return on ad spend was 21.67x, and our cost per lead, for those of you who are like really into Facebook ads, was $3.98. These are phenomenal results. To have a 21x return on ad spend is amazing, right? So that's kind of like I said earlier, if you can spend $10 and make $20 back, that $10 is definitely worth it, right? And so imagine if Facebook didn't cap us, imagine if we could have spent more on advertising instead of only being able to spend $7,000, if we could have spent $50,000, $100,000, and our return on ad spend was 10x, let's say, we could have probably done a lot more. But of course, I'm really happy with what I have. So don't get me wrong, but just letting you guys know that paid advertising is really, really magical if you really think about it, because again, you put $1 in, you make $5 back, right? If you have a validated product, if you have good messaging and all that. So back to the question of, is paid advertising worth it? I definitely think it's worth it, but only if you have a validated product, if you already have good positioning and good messaging, right? So for a lot of you guys who are just starting out in business and you don't even know what your niche is, you don't even have a target audience in mind, like you don't have a validated product, it's gonna be very hard for your Facebook ads to succeed because you're not gonna know who to target, you're not gonna know how to optimize your ads, right? And your messaging, your creatives, you might not know what the right creatives are, what the right messaging is to get a good return on investment, and you might even lose money, let's say. And so that's why I would highly recommend Facebook ads once you do at least have an idea of who your target audience is, what your product is, what is your unique selling point, all of these these things because that's what's going to actually make your ads a lot stronger. But anyways, that is the details of Facebook ads for those of you who are interested. Now, before I move on to the next question too, I also want to address as to why I chose to redo my entire program. Right? So the reason why I decided to redo my entire program for the 3rd edition is because at that point I had collected a year's worth of data, a year's worth of student feedback, and I knew exactly what I needed to remove from the program to get people better results. I knew exactly what I needed to add to get people better results. And I also, like I said, because I really wanted to step into the next version of myself, I really wanted to step into the next level of my business, I just wanted to upgrade everything. I rebranded it so that it would look more polished. I also invested in better screen recording software. So instead of recording things using Zoom, I used ScreenFlow, and ScreenFlow was able to record everything in 4K. Instead of using my MacBook webcam, I ended up using my YouTube webcam to do all of the filming. So the camera that I use for YouTube, which is a 4K camera, I upgraded to a better microphone. So when you actually go into the new program, it's an entire elevated look and feel. It really feels like $1 million program, and that's why I decided to redo the whole thing, because I wanted to go big. You know, go big or go home. I decided to go big. I decided to invest a lot of time, energy, resources, money into making this program a very polished program. And of course, you don't get here overnight. And for me, my journey, and you're gonna learn more about that journey if you go to www.followerstoclients.com and attend my training. I share more about how I exactly scaled up to this point, but it took me like 2 renditions of the program in order to finally get this 3rd version, which I am super, super happy with, right? It took me 3 attempts basically to get to this level, and it took me 1.5 years to get to this level as well of polishing everything. And so your first program, your first course, your first draft is always going to look like Hot Mess Express. I look at my old program versus what it looks like now, and I cannot even recognize the quality difference. But that never stopped me from launching it. It never stopped me from helping people through my program, and it didn't stop me from making the revenue that I need to make in order to create even better programs, in order to reinvest it back into my business, right? The $1 million that we made, the 800,000 cash collected that we made, it doesn't all go to me. It goes to hiring new team members. It goes to upgrading equipment. It goes to taxes. It goes to so many things that elevates my content even more to help more people. It helps me increase people's salaries on my team that work really hard for me. It helps us hire new people. A lot of things that go into business. Now, I also get a lot of questions sometimes about profit and how revenue also does not equal profit, and that's totally true. And so I'm transparent with you guys. In my business, our profit is about 50 to 60%, which is really, really healthy. A lot of people in this space, their profits are probably about 30%, and we have almost double that, which is really awesome. And so those are just the numbers that I'm sharing transparently with you. And I really hope that this gives you guys a glimpse of what it looks like behind the scenes of launching something at this scale. And also, you know, my learning lessons that you guys can learn from as you launch your own programs, as you monetize your business, and as you scale as well. Now, on to the next question that I have here is, what mindset work is required to stay in the game throughout a launch? And the first thing that I want to say is it's so important to know your numbers, and I talked about that before, but the moment that you know your numbers really well, you kind of remove any emotion from your launch. So very similar to what I was talking and walking you guys through is I just look at the numbers. Okay, cool, our registration numbers are down. What does that mean? So that means I need to promote more. Or our attendance rate is down. What does that mean? Well, it means I need to pivot and do like a bonus training at a different time on a different platform to increase attendance rates so that people see the webinar. My conversion rate is down. Okay, well, that means that I need to fix my messaging inside my webinar, or maybe change the pricing, add more bonuses, remove bonuses, change them, whatever it is. And so once you have data and you run your business using data-driven decisions, it's gonna feel a lot better, and you won't be stuck in a position where you're so hyper emotional and you don't know what's going on. How many of you guys have felt that feeling before where you're like, I don't know what to to do, and then all of a sudden you go into victim mode. You never want to go into victim mode, especially during a launch. What you want to do is you want to equip yourself with the information, look at things objectively, and fix it to the best of your ability. And if it doesn't work, then you have the numbers that tell you what went wrong so that you can fix it for later. So for me, a few things went wrong, but I know exactly why, and I don't get emotional about it. I know that I should have, upgraded people's hours. I know that I should have pulled some contractors aside and given them offers to become full-time employees sooner rather than later. I know that next time I will have trainings that have different time zones for different people in different countries. I know all of this, right? And so I just know for sure that my next launch is going to be even better because I know what went wrong the first time. I know that I need to batch my content in advance. Next time I won't burn out this way, and next time I won't, completely compromise my free channels at the expense of my launch, right? These are things that really help once you know your numbers really well and that you track these numbers throughout your launch, making data-driven decisions. Another thing mindset-wise to understand, especially when you're going through a launch, is know that majority of your sales are going to come from the last day. So for us, about a third of all of our sales came from the very last day. Okay. And that's crazy to think about, but it's so true. A lot of people will not make a decision until they have to, until the timer is literally ticking and they know they only have 10 minutes to make a decision. That's when they'll make that decision. And so what I noticed is that our biggest sales days are usually the very first day that you launch something, because those are usually the people who are early adopters. Maybe they're people that were on your wait list for a while and they were already anticipating and they already know that your program is right for them. And then, in between, it's a lot of people who just jump in. And then at the end is the people who were procrastinating on the decision and finally decided to enroll because there's a deadline, right? And so just know that, and I think that really helps you to not panic so much during your launch, knowing the fact that majority or at least 1/4 of your sales is going to be attributed to the very last day. Future Vanessa here. So I was reviewing the footage and I realized that I was missing the third mindset shift, which is the most important one, I believe, that you need to carry on, not just for launches, but for your entire duration that you run your business for years and years to come. And that is having unshakable belief and confidence in the product that you sell. And this is really key because there's a reason why some people might feel icky with selling, might feel icky with self-promotion. But when you actually believe that the product that you have is truly valuable, can help other people, generally selling doesn't feel so scary anymore. I know for me, when I go into a launch or when I'm talking about my product, I am just so confident in it because I have tangible proof through all the testimonials, all the videos, all the transformations that I have seen my students have because of this program. And this is why I'm always so happy to show up, because of the transformations that other people are receiving through accessing my content. Whether that's free content, paid content, doesn't matter. And this confidence, I will tell you, takes time to develop. And it's really normal that for your first few launches, you might be a little bit nervous, a little bit scared, and that's completely normal. But I assure you that you just need to do the damn thing and finally see the transformations, the results, the life-changing moments that other people are having thanks to you, thanks to your processes, your frameworks, your content, your methods. And I know for me, I mentioned earlier on in this video, the first time that I ever launched the Bossgram Academy, I was so nervous about it because I was doing it Elon Musk style. And like I said, I sold the idea on the sales page. I enrolled a lot of students based off of the idea and the outline that I had for the course. And it was sold at an introductory price. So it was at an investment level that is way less than what it is now because it was the very first time that I was running the program. And I was drip feeding the material. So I didn't have the product ready, but week after week after week, I would be collecting feedback and then drip feeding and releasing a module each week. And so that way I was creating the product while getting feedback, and that ensured all of the material within my program was exactly what my students wanted. And because of that, I was able to secure better satisfaction rates, better testimonials, better results, and all of that. And I really recommend this method, especially if you're just starting and you're starting your very first program, is to just create the program after you enroll the students, get their feedback, and really release the content as they go so that you can get all the biggest questions, all their feedback, and integrate it into the next lessons, into the next modules. And that's how I was able to secure really amazing testimonials right from the first launch. And I assure you, after that, and after you receiving those type of testimonials, those words of praise, you honestly feel like a superwoman or a superman or superhuman, because you can actually tangibly see the transformations that other people are getting. And it doesn't matter if it's one person, 50 people, 100 people, 5 people, a transformation is a transformation. Impact is impact. And that's why it's so important when you're headed into a launch that you do have this unshakable belief and confidence in the value that you're providing to other people. And even if you end up enrolling one person, that is one person where you can make a positive impact in, and you're always gonna have other launches in the future. And if you enroll less people than you thought you would, then great. Now you can pour more of your time and energy into those people and leverage their transformations for your next launch, and also build up that confidence in yourself that you have something great to offer. I know for me, I was also kind of feeling a little bit nervous, and it wasn't until our students submitted their video testimonials, their written testimonials, where I realized I can do this. Like, this is a really great product, and I am so excited to shout it to the rooftops on my Instagram. I'm so excited for all the 4 trainings that I'm doing live for people so that they can get a glimpse of what we teach inside the program for free. And it's just an incredible feeling when you have that confidence. So I definitely wanted to include this as the third and probably most important mindset shifts. Numbers are great, understanding them is good, but at the end of the day, it's really that mindset component of you knowing that what you have to offer is awesome and that it deserves to be in the hands of more people, and so that you can really scale your impact that way. Anyways, guys, I know that there were a lot of questions that were submitted, and I definitely want to answer all of them, and I might, take pieces of those questions and answer them in future content pieces or create future videos around them. But I am so glad to be back. It's very exciting for me. I have like a whole content plan mapped out from now until the rest of the year that I'm really excited to film and release to you guys on all of my channels. And yeah, so while you wait for the next week's video, make sure that you also check out these 2 videos that I have right here as well. I post a lot about social media, marketing, entrepreneurship, and all the likes of that. And also do make sure you check out www.followerstoclients.com to really get more in-depth trainings on a lot of the things that I talked about today, and also to learn more about how I scaled up more comprehensively. Anyways, guys, I really appreciate you. Thank you for sticking around until the end of this video. Comment below, let me know what you liked about the video and all of that, and I will see you next time. Have a great day, a great week, and a great life, and I'll catch you later. Bye, guys.